Hey, thanks for tuning in. This is Kyle is Wonderful, and this is the second ever episode on June 17th, 2022. This is the Wonderful Wrestling Podcast, and thanks for joining me, guys. Um, Another just crazy week in this crazy world that we call professional wrestling all around the globe. I guess I'll just start on a quick check on where the channel has gone since our last episode of the Wonderful Wrestling Podcast that was on last Friday. You can go catch that. It was a 3-hour extravaganza. Ever since then, I've now on the channel I binged 5 weeks worth of NWA, National Wrestling Alliance, Powerrr, and USA. Those are their 2 weekly shows. So I binge watched that on Saturday, 5 weeks worth of that. And then I watched the NWA Always Ready pay-per-view. It was supposed to be in honor of Matt Cardona, the NWA champion, but then just on the exact same day that CM Punk and Cody Rhodes, all three big players in three different companies in America, all three under the knife and going into surgery right around the same day, like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It might even have been, but that was just before the Always Ready pay-per-view, so Matt Cardona could not defend his title. So a new NWA heavyweight champion there, and it was Trevor Murdoch of all people. That might surprise a lot of people that haven't watched wrestling in a while, are paying attention to NWA. Trevor Murdoch is a former NWA champion in NWA, and he is once again the heavyweight title holder. But I liked what I saw in NWA. I'm a big fan. I'm going to continue to cover them. I covered their Powerrr show, which is their flagship show, but they also host USA as another weekly show. All of these you can find for free on YouTube, and you can get the pay-per-views on Fight TV, but you can pay for a yearly annual subscription and get a big discount off of all the pay-per-views. So NWA definitely added to the rotation. We also had New Japan Pro Wrestling, NJPW, Dominion, which is basically their second biggest card of the year, not withholding any G1 or Best of the Super Junior finals and stuff like that. But that ended up being a big deal. Huge things happened. A lot of stuff pertaining to AEW, of course, has their Forbidden Door cross promoted with New Japan Pro Wrestling and AEW pay-per-view coming up. And I think it's only 8-9 days away now, so that's going to be exciting. But a lot of things happened at New Japan, including a new IWGP, which, if you don't know, that's the International Wrestling Grand Prix. The governors of the titles belts, the championships at New Japan Wrestling, are governed by the International Wrestling Grand Prix. So the IWGP heavyweight champion Switchblade Jay White defeats Kazuchika Okada for the or the IWGP World Heavyweight title, which has repercussions throughout the world, including this big match for Forbidden Door. So we'll get into some of that as we go here. I won't be doing any show reviews. I decided I want to do only show reviews separate, and then this flagship podcast will just be my thoughts about the news and happenings throughout the week. So this will be the weekly. You can catch it every Friday. It might be early Friday. It might be late Friday going into Saturday, depending on what's going on. I wanted to get it out now. We've got a lot coming up this weekend, but including Slammiversary and a big New Japan show that has matches for AEW's Forbidden Door pay-per-view on the line. So the All-Atlantic Championship of all things, which we didn't even know existed until about 8 days ago. So this crazy world of pro wrestling never sleeps. We've got a lot of news to get to, including Jeff Hardy, Vince McMahon, and Sasha Banks. I'll get into all of those as they happen. We'll start with the news, and then I'll get into my talks about the companies as we go here. I don't know how long this will last. It'll just last as long as I get through everything I want to talk about, because there's so much to talk about. So let's just start a little bit about me in the channel. Like I said, I have the New Japan Pro Wrestling Dominion card for review, Always Ready for review, and Raw. I've got a 3-hour extravaganza for the review of this week's NXT 2.0, which includes a review of what I can piece together from online of the two live events, the first two live events that NXT has held ever since becoming 2.0 and since the pandemic happened. So I've got a lot to report from there. There was a release in NXT 2.0. Troy Donovan was released from. He was part of the Tony D'Angelo family. So there was news there. Like, just literally, the news never stops. If you look away from Twitter or online for 5 hours, you know that when you check in again, it's going to be something crazy happening, and that's part of why I wanted to get into this podcast. With it was just too much going on with the whole Cody Rhodes injury. I was actually here to review the Cody Rhodes injury, but that was just like the whole CM Punk injury and stuff like that. So it's just been a crazy time. I wanted to get back into this after a long time. I was hosting a podcast about FIFA Pro Clubs. If you guys don't know, that's the soccer or football version, the video game, where you can get 10 of your friends or 10 people that are real life people together, form a team, and there's different leagues online to join. So I was doing that. I transitioned out of that. I didn't like where the community was headed. I was trying my best. I was literally adding the stats for for about 500 600 players from the ages of 15 to 50, and the community was just bad from the ages of 15 to 50. So I know the wrestling community isn't any better as far as that goes, but here I'm not going to be as invested as a personal type deal. So I'm going to put my efforts into the wrestling here from on out. So you can catch. I've had one of the most in-depth as far as NXT in the Performance Center universe modes on WWE 2K22 that you can basically find on the internet. I just spent all of last night. I stayed up all night to create four different, I think maybe even five different people that are new to the NXT. Three of them made their debut in the NXT live events, so they haven't even been on TV yet, but I now know their trademark name. Once they get their trademark name, and I know that they don't have just their real name. As we know, WWE is now feeling that AEW is competition yet again, or they have competition, so they're being more stingy like they were in the past about trademarks, and they want to trademark everything. So go check those out. I just started year two. So I finished a week ago, right after our last episode of the Wonderful Wrestling Podcast. We finished, or I got to WrestleMania 39 in Hollywood. So that was a great event. That was a culmination of the year long of storylines I put together, about 1 month to 6 weeks into trying to let everything be like the real life Raw, SmackDown, and NXT roster, which I started at the beginning of May. It just really wasn't up to snuff, which is indicative of how bad the real life WWF or WWE rosters are with SmackDown and Raw. I was getting like Madcap Moss versus Shanky 5 weeks in a row. So I took over. I booked the entire year. I made call ups from NXT. I put together factions. I put together teams. I put together rosters. Now, when I got to Survivor Series, I unified all the titles. So all the titles were unified. And now that WrestleMania 39 is over with, I ended the brand split, and I've got the latest people from the Performance Center up on the NXT. So I've reinforced NXT with all these call-ups I've made to the main roster. So if you want to see how I would book WWE, and if you want a good look at some of the latest recruits from the Performance Center, or if you're wondering what some of the NXT people are doing, I've got the latest up-to-date outfits, move sets, and gimmicks, as far as I can show you the gimmicks in a video game form, basically through their entrances. So check that out. That's on the channel. Raw review and NXT review. I went through the mid-year report on through the entire roster as well on the almost 3 hour NXT 2.0 review just this last Tuesday. So that's what's on the channel. And I'm not going to do any show reviews. I'm going to do all the show reviews from now on individually. So I have not watched Impact or NXT UK yet. It is Friday morning, 3 1:35 a.m. in the morning going into Friday. I have not watched those two shows yet. I will come out with a review individually for each of those two shows, as well as SmackDown, Rampage, and NXT Level Up tomorrow. All of those will be in their individual reviews. I figured that's a lot easier to find if you just happen to only care about NXT per se, or if you only care about AEW. So all those reviews will be separate, and the flagship show, the Wonderful Wrestling Podcast, will only be about overviews of the week and what we think the best news and stuff going on is. So that's what I want to talk about there. Let's get into the news. It's been a crazy week of news. We'll just start. Unfortunately, Jeff Hardy got another DUI. He blew 3.5 times over the legal limit, and I'm someone I know addiction is. I know for a fact addiction is a disease. It's something you can't get rid of. I try. It's something I have to deal with myself daily. As far as I do still drink and smoke, but I try to keep it to a limit. I haven't drunk and drive for over a decade, which I regret ever doing in the past. It's something I regret, but luckily I didn't hurt anybody else, which is the main thing. If you hurt yourself, that's on you. But when you're drinking and driving, you can affect other people. You can affect an entire family that were going to visit their grandma, and you're over there on the road drunk. So drinking and driving is never excusable, but addiction is a problem. I don't know how Jeff Hardy ever was able to acquire a license or a rental car or have a car in his possession. I'm not going to blame anybody like Matt Hardy. I'm sure Matt Hardy tried his best, but at the same time, Matt Hardy had to have known that Jeff had access to cars. And it's just sad that Jeff couldn't just have someone. If it was me, I would have someone like maybe a giant bodyguard type that I would have, if I was close to Jeff Hardy, I would have paid a bodyguard to watch over him at all points. And if he's not the one that drives him home, then he would be the one that I would always call an Uber anywhere Jeff needs to go. So a lot of people took this Jeff Hardy ordeal. This all happened on Monday. I think it happened about 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time in United States. It happened in Florida the night before. Jeff Hardy was actually doing an acoustic setup, along with some signings with his brother Matt, and there was pictures taken that night. Devon was there, so there was everything was going good, and there's a common theme of this is maybe the fifth or sixth time that Jeff Hardy has fallen off the wagon in such a public manner. Of course, he was even in a match in TNA where he was champion going into the match and the main event, and he showed up on something where he could not even do the match. They and Sting of all people, the legendary Sting, had to pin him down for a 3 count because he was so blitzed out of his mind that it would have been a danger for him or Sting to try and actually wrestle a match. It's neither here nor there. If it's, you probably could say that TNA or Impact Wrestling shouldn't have allowed Jeff to even get out of the curtain, let alone in the ring at that point. But that's neither here nor there. I just want to deal with the facts before I get into my opinion. The facts are Jeff Hardy has had this style of wrestling where it's super extreme and he could fit it right. He never was in ECW, but he comes from that ECW mold where he doesn't care what kind of risks he takes in a match. He just wants to excite the crowd. And he's been on record of saying recently, in fact, that he doesn't even really like to wrestle a regular match. He prefers it to be where he's jumping off of high ladders or ledges or whatever it may be. So a lot of people are trying to blame AEW for the fact that Jeff Hardy now, after not really doing a lot of extreme things when he was just a bit player on SmackDown for this last year or two, on the WWE roster. A lot of people want to blame Tony Khan and them for Jeff Hardy now. Like, we saw him jump off a ledge, we saw him jump off of multiple ladders, take insane bumps. And last we saw him wrestle, he basically got almost knocked unconscious and got a concussion, I'm pretty sure, against the Young Bucks at the Double or Nothing pay-per-view. That was the last match that Jeff Hardy wrestled. So a lot of people want to blame Tony Khan for all the bumps he was taking in that, but just the pure facts are Jeff Hardy has had a long history of um, addiction problems, and has had, like, he doesn't have a license, or shouldn't have had a license. He has been revoked from all these times. So um we don't know if Tony Khan was telling Jeff that you don't need to do all this stuff, and Jeff was like, "No, I'm all right. I feel fine. I can do it. It's everything's okay. I Don't worry about me. I got this." And Jeff insisted upon doing all these hardcore things, which we don't even know if that's what led him to drinking again, or if it was maybe just some people, once they find success, fall back into their addiction because they're used to having to be in the struggle. So once they find success, they can fall off the wagon, which is a common theme with Jeff Hardy. His original biggest problem with WWF or WWE came when he was champion of WWE and fell off the wagon, and they had to strip him of the title. And again, it happened when he was champion of TNA, and now he's finding some success and having a lot of good time again now, and that he's free from WWE and he's able to do whatever he wants in seemingly in AEW. So we don't know anything other, but we going back to the facts, Jeff Hardy did that acoustic set that night, just before the night before he got arrested at 10 a.m. in the morning. And he during the acoustic set, it's on video, you can find it online, that he was taking big shots of whiskey and saying, like, things on camera. You can see that Jeff Hardy's saying, "Oh, the whiskey and the it's I love it, but I hate it because it gets me in trouble," kind of deal. I'm paraphrasing. That's not what he said. He said it better than that, but he basically said he knew that he loves whiskey, but it gets him in trouble. And then fast forward maybe 10 hours later, and he's getting in trouble. So he finished his acoustic set, and um, there was fireballs involved. When Jeff Hardy did get arrested, he told the police officers that he was having some fireball shots, and I think there was maybe fireball shots in the car. Don't quote me on that, but um, fireballs and whiskey was the culprits here. We don't know if any other substances were involved, but the police officers, if you do watch the video, it is quite disturbing. I would recommend not watching the video of them arresting Jeff Hardy. They draw guns on Jeff Hardy because he was so erratic. They say that at least 4 to 6 people called in the 911 saying someone was very erratic and dangerous on the road. Jeff Hardy was like I said, pulled over at 10 a.m. And he said when he got eventually calmed down and the cops were talking to him, that Jeff Hardy told them that he was on his way to a brain scan, which, as we know, his last match in just a couple weeks ago at Double or Nothing, he got a massive concussion, where he's already had major concussions in the past, and all this other stuff wrong with him. So Jeff Hardy was apparently, from what we can piece together there, did a acoustic set and a autograph signing at a bar the night before. Jeff Hardy or Matt Hardy was there with him, as well as like people like Devon and people that cared about him. Then what we don't know is what happens after Jeff Hardy leaves the bar and before he gets pulled over at 10 a.m. on his way to a brain scan, because Tony Khan has him in a TLC match 2 days later from this Monday. That just happened 2 days ago on Wednesday on Dynamite. It was supposed to be a three-way tag team TLC match for the AEW titles. So Jeff Hardy was on his way to a brain scan of all things, and completely drunk from the night before, where he was partying and whatnot. I don't know how he didn't have anybody looking over him, like a bodyguard or anything. I just can't understand that when you make money as a celebrity that you can't have a bodyguard that looks over your well-being. But here we are. Jeff Hardy gets arrested. AEW waits until he gets posted from bond. There was like $3,500 bond. This is the third offense on record at without any others getting wiped out. Third offense on record of DUIs in the state of Florida can lead to up to 10 years in prison. And these are the serious things that Jeff Hardy is now looking at. He posted, he got out of on bond. I'm sure Matt Hardy helped him out on that. And um, when he got out, AEW contacted him, and all we got was an AEW release after that point saying they were in contact with Jeff Hardy. They told Jeff Hardy they will pay for any rehab that he will go to, and if he completes rehab and maintains sobriety, they will allow Jeff Hardy to become part of the roster again on AEW. Until that point, he is suspended indefinitely without pay. And like I said, they will AEW and Tony Khan will personally pay for any rehab that Jeff Hardy will allow them to put him in. But we don't know if, after all it's said and done with these trials, just like the Tammy Sitch trial, Jeff Hardy might be looking at major jail time. And I just, at the end of the day, I'm glad Jeff Hardy didn't hurt anybody on the road. He didn't hurt himself. And hopefully he can get the help he needs. And nobody, it's again, no, it's nobody's fault. It's not Matt Hardy's fault. It's not Tony Khan's fault. It's not WWE's fault. It's nobody's fault. It's not Jeff Hardy's fault per se either. Although somewhere along the line, somebody should have got him a bodyguard. But addiction is a terrible thing. It is a disease, and we can just be thankful that nobody has died yet. And hopefully Jeff Hardy can come clean, get clean, and stay clean, and live a happy rest of his life. I never want to see Jeff Hardy in the ring ever again, personally. It had already, ever since Jeff Hardy joined AEW, it was really hard to watch him do all these high extreme things. He's not super old, but he's put his body through hell ever since the late 90s, and now we're in 2022. So I hope for the best for Jeff Hardy, and I hope he can get the help he needs. But he was pulled from the AEW main event, where we did get crowned a new the Young Bucks, the first ever two-time AEW World Tag Champions. So not to bring wrestling back into the serious thing, but this is what wrestling's all about. Wrestling is this weekly live thing where it's literally a mix between the characters they play on TV and the real life people, and the real life people can always come into play. Just for an example, not to compare this with the Jeff Hardy thing, but Roman Reigns getting COVID on January 1st for the day one pay-per-view, where he was supposed to fight Brock Lesnar for the Universal title. That turned into Roman had COVID. Now Brock goes and wins the WWE title, and Big E no longer has the WWE title, and that just sets forth a convergence of events, which eventually led back to what they wanted to do eventually. But do we know if Roman Reigns never gets COVID, does he have both? Roman Reigns currently holds the WWE and Universal title after eventually beating Brock Lesnar, but not until WrestleMania. So all of these things happen because of a real life event, and now we're stuck with Roman apparently has a new contract deal with WWE where he can take more vacation dates. So Roman Reigns is basically on the Brock Lesnar deal, and we just gave Roman Reigns the WWE and the Universal title. So Raw and SmackDown's top title are on Roman Reigns, and we haven't seen Roman Reigns defend the title since WrestleMania about 10 weeks ago now. We will get tomorrow, later today, on SmackDown, Roman Reigns will appear and he will defend against Riddle. I assume Roman Reigns will beat Riddle, and we probably won't see Roman Reigns again until around SummerSlam time. So I don't know exactly what's going on there, but that's just an example of how this crazy world of professional wrestling is such a mixture of real life and what you see on the screen. And even the wrestlers themselves sometimes find it hard to separate reality from fiction. Fiction being what we see on television. So all of this happened on Monday night or Monday afternoon is when we found out about the Monday morning arrest of Jeff Hardy. And Jeff Hardy was in jail until about Tuesday afternoon, Monday night, somewhere around there. And just before all this talk, we had plenty of a couple of days to talk about Jeff Hardy and all that, and a lot of WWE versus AEW bullshit, tribal stuff that shouldn't be happening. Like I said, it's nobody's fault per se, but anyway, before we can even get into like even more Jeff Hardy stuff, a giant news story comes out, not from Sean Ross Sapp from Fightful, not from Russell Votes, not from any of these, not from Meltzer or Brian Alvarez. No, this comes from the Wall Street Journal. The Wall Street Journal comes out with a report on Wednesday. So about, I don't know, like 40 hours ago, Wall Street Journal comes out with a report saying Vince McMahon had paid, he had upped. So basically Vince McMahon had this woman working under in WWE. Vince McMahon then had a sexual relation, so trigger warning for sexual relations and any sexual trigger warnings for all that stuff. But Vince McMahon had sexual relations with this woman, increased her pay from 100,000 to 200,000, continued to have sexual relationships with her, and seemingly underneath like almost like a um, hooker type deal. Not the and it seems like she was forced into it, and that's why we now know about it, because Vince McMahon was being a scumbag. Surprise, surprise. So this is all recent history. This is all within the last couple of years. This isn't. We're not talking 1995. We're not talking 2007. We're not even talking 2013. We're talking like 2020, 2019, around that time. And Vince McMahon paid this woman. He gave her doubled her raise, which is on the books. Which, as we're finding out throughout the story, it looks like the board of directors and stuff at WWE and all the shareholders are the ones that are going to be mad about these spendings off the books and stuff, just for Vince McMahon to be doing sexual relations. Now, if you go look on the um, corporate website of WWE and you go through the list of rules and regulations within WWE and the people that work there, there is a rule written that there should not be any sexual relations that involve bribes and pay raises and stuff like that. So it's written within the rules that is extremely prohibited, and that is what we're finding out had happened. It looks like Vince McMahon doubled the pay of this woman after he started using her as a sexual relations partner. The reason I say started using her is then it is said, we don't know exactly what came out in the report, but it is, and again, trigger warning for anyone sensitive to sexual violent stuff, but it was said that Vince McMahon had passed this woman around as a toy to Johnny Laurinaitis, who is second or third in command, along with Bruce Pritchard and Vince McMahon, as far as the day-to-day running the business that you see on television. So we're not talking the business end, but the television end, the creative side, the handling of all the other people and stuff like that, as well as some of the corporate side. So Johnny Laurinaitis is named in this as being someone that was being passed around this woman, who is the original person named in this investigation, which we'll get to the who might have leaked this investigation that we now know about, and that the shareholders of WWE and now the entire media of anybody, Wall Street Journal, mainly focuses in businesses and stocks. And this is a big thing when it comes to WWE stocks and the shareholders and WWE. This is a penalty of Vince McMahon now. He wanted to go the route of being a publicly traded company, and which then made him a multi-billion-dollar corporation and himself a billionaire. But as a result, he's now under scrutiny of shareholders and having everything be public. All these records are public now that he doubled the pay from 100,000 to 200,000, started passing her around. So basically, she was against her will doing things where she knows she's either going to be fired from her job, or she can continue to do sexual things that she doesn't want to do. All of this is bad enough. But this basically has now opened the floodgate where we're just basically, after Wall Street Journal told us all about that, they said multiple investigations of other things and other things that are similar to this are now being investigated, which is, if you're a wrestling fan, if you've been following WWE, and if you've been following Vince McMahon for his entire 40-year career as being the owner of then WWF and now WWE, you don't think any of this is a surprise. Let's just again look at facts without looking at opinions. Let's look at facts. Just the on-screen character of Vince McMahon. The facts are that we know he runs the company. He's the one that writes. We're watching his version of whatever world he envisions. So we got a lot of that. Braun, remember there was no women's wrestling division. There was a women that came on the air and they wore lingerie and had a lot of pillow fights and all that kind of stuff. That in and of itself is bad enough, but not like anything that you can put against a guy like Vince McMahon. Just like, you can't indict him or like say he's bad for that. But what you can say is bad is, again, we know Vince McMahon is the person writing this whole world. This is the vision of Vince McMahon that we're watching on WWE for all these years. And let's look at all the ridiculous, creepy things that he's written. Again, he's the one that wrote this to do. So he had like Trish Stratus barking like a dog while he had his wife sedated in front of him. And he would do stuff like cuddle and make out with Trish Stratus, and then he eventually had her barking like a dog and acting like a dog in front of millions of people on television. And sure, it was just a television show, but again, this is a television show that is overseen by this particular man, Vince McMahon. This was his vision of what he wanted to show the world. So the Trish Stratus stuff is just one little thing. Remember when like he had Candice Michelle and Victoria, who Candice Michelle is more of the model type, but Victoria is a wrestler. But nope, they were like his like sexual slaves on air where they did all his bidding and stuff like that. There's the whole meme where Vince McMahon has some of the longest, sexiest legs. Former ex-girlfriend of George Clooney, who a lot of people considered the sexiest man alive at the time. But no, here's Vince McMahon, who writes his own television show, and we've all seen the meme. He's got some of the longest, sexiest legs in the world, Stacy Keibler, over his shoulders as he's like acting all exaggerated, and we're all laughing. It's a meme now, and it's funny, and it's just horn dog old Vince McMahon again doing his old things. But no, like, all of this stuff adds up. As if you remember, at the end of the day, Vince McMahon is the one that's writing this whole show that we're watching, and he's telling. So he basically has these performers, if we want to call them, these female wrestlers, doing his bidding of being his sexual slaves or his partners, or barking like a dog, or all these different things on air. So that it's not a surprise that he's a freaking creep, because he's the one writing all these things. And if Trish Stratus or Victoria or Stacy Keibler or any of these women were to say no to this segment, what would have happened to them? Would they have gotten fired? Would they have gotten taken off TV for 2 months, where maybe they wouldn't have gotten fired, but now their revenue from merchandise and all that stuff, and the career they were trying to build for themselves, then maybe they grew up a wrestling fan because of their grandmother, and now they're in the wrestling business, and they just wanted to do their family proud and make a little bit of money and make a living out of this, while also being a wrestling fan. But nope, here they are, just barking like a dog on air in front of Vince McMahon, acting like his sexual deviant slave. What happens if you say no to Vince McMahon? Exactly. You're probably done with. So this has been a long time coming. Vince McMahon just barely escaped the steroid trial of the early 1990s, around 1992, 1993, where basically Hulk Hogan lied and testified for Vince McMahon. Hulk Hogan saved Vince McMahon's ass, because if Hulk Hogan would have been on in court saying that Vince McMahon indeed distributed steroids to everybody and encouraged that everybody took steroids, then Vince McMahon would have been in jail in 1993, and the entire business would have changed. I don't know what would have happened, but Vince McMahon has dodged bullets throughout his entire life here. Again, going back to what we know, Vince McMahon has basically been estranged from his wife. He's still married to Linda McMahon, but um, ever since, go back to Vince McMahon spent over $100 million because, of course, he's a billionaire and he's just looking to find ways to spend money at this point because he's making money hand over fist, and he's trying to get Linda McMahon in the U.S. Senate as a Republican to pass even more laws and stuff that he wants. I didn't even get into mafia and New World Order and political ties that Vince McMahon. We all know Vince McMahon's a great personal friend of Donald Trump. Donald Trump is in the WWE Hall of Fame, and so nothing more needs to be said there. But I'm sure Vince McMahon knew Jeffrey Epstein. So again, just this is the kind of man we're dealing with. This is the kind of man we've always known for the last 30 years, or at least since WCW folded. So for 20 years, we've known that the lunatic, the person that's in charge of wrestling in America is a freaking perverted lunatic that has ties to the mafia, that has ties to the government, that has ties to the New World Order, and all that stuff. So, and we've known that they've done all these underhanded tactics and having John Cena go out there and for the wounded troops and visiting cancer kids so that we can sell a few more John Cena t-shirts in the latest bright color, and then we can sell a few more tickets to the pay-per-view that we didn't have do anything about. All of this is just ridiculous. So I don't know where this is going to go, but let's go back to the who done it, who leaked this. Let's go back to facts then. So like I said, Vince McMahon spent over $100 million trying to get his wife Linda McMahon into the Senate. So Linda McMahon was like the CEO of the company before this. She stepped down. You can't run for Senate if you're like a CEO of a major company. So Linda stepped down and got rid of any ties to WWE. But of course, here's Vince McMahon, her husband, bankrolling her whole campaign. She failed twice to get into the Senate. Once Donald Trump, side story, once Donald Trump did get elected to president, Linda McMahon was in his cabinet as, I think, Department of Transportation of all things. Like, I don't know why she's qualified for that, but she was just a friend of Donald Trump and she got in his cabinet. That's how the world works. So Vince McMahon, if you go back to when she lost, I think the second time, the look on Vince McMahon's face told us that he never wanted to see Linda McMahon again in his life. If you go back to the Pat McAfee podcast with Vince McMahon on it just before WrestleMania, about a month before this last WrestleMania back in March, Vince McMahon was on there. He clearly said, like, his my wife at the time, Linda, and then he's like, oh, whoops. And he wasn't wearing his wedding ring, so he is clearly estranged from his wife. Linda's completely out of the picture ever since, like I said, she had to step down from CEO of WWE to even run for Senate, and then she never got in any power after that point. Fast forward to the last couple of years, we know Triple H got taken out of NXT. Probably he never would have gotten to that NXT type job without marrying Stephanie McMahon. But by proxy of being family in the McMahons with Vince and being married to Stephanie means that Triple H had to go in Vince's eyes or in someone's eyes. We'll get to that. So we've already got Linda out of the picture. Now they get rid of Triple H. Triple H also had heart problems and a lot of health scares and almost died. So we don't even know, like, if we want to go really really conspiracy theorists, we could even say they slipped something in Triple H's drink, but I'm not going to go that route. I'm going to stick to the facts here. So sorry for even mentioning that, but I'm telling you, nothing's off the table here. We're talking about serious stuff with like mafia and political and New World Order ties. So, um, and I hope I don't get my channel shut down now for talking about all this, but for real, like Triple H got taken out of the picture. Then we know the whole story. Shane McMahon had a little bit of too much shine apparently in the Royal Rumble, and apparently Shane McMahon wanted to like beat up Brock Lesnar in the Royal Rumble and win the whole Royal Rumble. So Shane McMahon got fired like a week or two after the Royal Rumble. So now Shane's out of the picture. And quick side story, let's go back. I was there the night Shane made his return. If you remember, Shane McMahon, the son of Vince McMahon, was like almost excommunicated for a while. We hadn't seen Shane on WWE television or mentioned or anything, or even like in the news in America for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. A lot of time went by. I was following Shane McMahon because I was a big fan of Shane McMahon. One of my good friends, personal close friends in real life, even bought stock in Shane McMahon's new company, which Shane had when he left WWE. Shane started a streaming service in China, which sounds like a pretty lucrative idea if you're that was right before like that was long before, I should say, streaming services were a big deal. And if you're going to start a streaming service like that, China, if you can have ties to China and do stuff in China, that's the biggest market in the world. So Shane McMahon was doing a lot of good stuff on the business end. Like I said, my close personal friend even bought into his stock and was so I have close personal hand knowledge because he shared with me some of the stuff he would learn from the shareholder meetings that Shane McMahon was in this company. And Shane, basically, at the end of the day, I don't have any juicy tidbits of that, but Shane was doing great work, and that's all you need to know. So Shane is great. And Triple H, as we know, was he didn't reinvent the wheel by just going out and buying all the best independent talent from the world, but what Triple H was doing was exactly what Vince McMahon originally did when Vince McMahon took over his father's company. What Vince McMahon did is he bought all the best talent from around the world. Sound familiar? So your Ted DiBiase's, your Hulk Hogan's, your Macho Man Randy Savage's, your Mean Gene Okerlund's, your Bobby the Brain Heenan's, all bought from other companies by Vince once he bought in his father's company. And this is where we all think the mafia ties come in with the whole he was able to profit and go and buy out all the other companies in the world or the country until he was the only one remaining in 2001 once WCW and ECW were out of the picture. So I know I'm being long-winded and going a lot of different directions, but again, right now we're talking about who done it, who leaked the news that about this, because we've all known for years, for decades, that Vince McMahon does all this stuff, and we don't have solid proof, but there are people out there that have solid proof. Vince McMahon surrounds himself by yes men for a reason, like your Bruce Pritchards and your Johnny Laurinaitis. Those are your ultimate yes men. They can know all of Vince's dirty secrets. They're never gonna expose Vince, which means Johnny Laurinaitis and Bruce Pritchard are gonna be the first ones to fall for the sword. And we could come out of all of this with Vince McMahon having nothing done to him and maybe Bruce Pritchard, but at least Johnny Laurinaitis being fired, if not maybe a Bruce Pritchard as well. So I assume Vince McMahon will continue to run WWE. I don't think we're going to see anybody take over, even though I haven't even gotten to the who done it yet. But I don't think Vince McMahon's going to lose his job. All you need to do is be an NFL fan. If you're an NFL fan, you know all the different things that Robert Kraft has done. And again, Robert Kraft has gotten caught. And if you guys don't know, that's the owner of the New England Patriots. He's been caught with like, oh, he paid this girl and that girl, and he had sexual relations with this and that. And he still is the owner of the Patriots, and nobody really brings it up anymore. So I'm sure Vince McMahon knows all the right people, and he'll get out of here scot-free once he puts At the very least, Johnny Laurinaitis is definitely going to be the fall guy, and if Vince needs even more fall guys, Bruce Pritchard will be the next one in line. But going back to this, Shane, Triple H, Linda, they're all out of the picture. All that's left is Vince has always been close to his daughter, Stephanie. Stephanie was the chief brand officer, the CBO. She was in charge of, famously said, all philanthropy is good philanthropy, which is why we've gotten 15 years of exploitation of cancer kids and wounded troops and all that in all the Susan G. Anthony cancer stuff and all that. The companies don't care. They care that philanthropy, showing that you're a good person, means you're going to ultimately bring money in, because people are going to be like, oh yeah, WWF, like they really care about the troops, the sick kids, the cancer ladies. Like WWE are some jam up people. That's what they want the simpletons to think, and the simpletons do think that. And that's why there's like millions of John Cena fans, and there's millions of people that will defend Vince McMahon and WWE to the death, because they're simpletons, and they're easily bought in by this manipulation of the, hey, look, like, don't boo John Cena. He loves the cancer kids, and he really fights for the wounded troops. Like, look at him here. Like, he's really going out of his way. Like, come on, bro. So anyway, long story short, Stephanie did her best to philanthropy is the future of business. Well, the future of business is once your father's done with you, you're tossed out like old news. So who really is tossing all the McMahons out? Is it Vince McMahon or is it Nick Khan? Excuse me, Nick Khan. So you might be asking yourselves, who's Nick Khan? Is that Tony Khan? Did you say Tony's first name wrong? No, his last name just happens to be Khan. He's unrelated to Tony Khan. This man's name is Nick Khan, and he is a business mogul. He's been in all kinds of different businesses. Not necessarily, I don't think he's ever been in wrestling before now, but they brought Nick Khan in. I might be mistaken, but just before the pandemic. So if you want to be a extreme conspiracy theorist, along the lines of the rich and the famous and the powerful knew the pandemic was going to happen. So Nick Khan was brought in anyway, along those same lines of to save the business. So that's why all these 182 releases that WWE has made, all the work that William Regal and Triple H did to scour the earth for the best talent and trying to bring the best talent in the WWE. Nick Khan came in, convinced the right people that all these people should be released, and we should move this department into this department so we can save money, and let's get this deal done and the new streaming deal here, and let's and so Nick Khan brought in the big Peacock deal. And I don't know if Nick Khan's responsible for the Fox deal, but maybe he is. Maybe that was Nick Khan's first deal. So Nick Khan's bringing in fistfuls of money into the company. Nick Khan's a pure mercenary. He doesn't give a one F about the wrestling business. He's here for business. So he saw that he could save money by releasing all these unneeded, in his opinion, quote unquote, unnecessary talent, and we can go get deals. We don't even, so we're at the point with WWE where they don't even really need a live audience, which was shown in the pandemic. WWE doesn't even need a live audience to come to their shows, which is the backbone of the professional wrestling business. It was never on TV. It was all about we need you to come watch us in person, and we wanted to do stuff while you're watching us in person for you to come back next week. That's how, or whenever, maybe when we come back in a month if you're a smaller town. But holy crap, like $1 billion deal to end the WWE network. I can no longer access the WWE network here in America. It's all on Peacock. It's a watered down version of the WWE network. It's really hard to find really anything if you're like, oh, I want to go watch some NWA from 1989. Like, you got to go through all these hoops and ladders just to find it. So that's basically because WWE wanted, Peacock wanted content that's owned by NBC, the same people that own USA Network, which has Raw, 3 freaking hours of Raw. Who needs 3 hours of weekly television? Apparently the USA Network and WWE, so that they can continue to pump out subpar quality, and they don't care if they have some kind of coherent story. Just run back the rematch from last week and have the other guy win, kind of deal. Copy and paste the show week after week, month after month, until it's just this bland, boring show where I'm so discouraged by everything. I don't care who's champion. The championships in WWE don't mean anything to me. I could and I find just a little sliver of maybe KO saying a couple one-liner or two is enough for me to like enjoy the last 10 minutes, because I'm so thirsty. I'm like on a desert island looking for any drip of water, and here's the oasis with a KO one-liner. So Nick Khan has completely made this company. It was already kind of like that, but when Nick Khan came in like 3 years ago or so, now WWE's completely just this watered down, sterile. We don't want to offend anybody, whether they be from China, India, New Hampshire, or England, like, or Saudi Arabia, which is another story. So you got the Peacock deal is $1 billion, the Fox deal to get Smackdown live on network TV in America on Fox, another $1 million with a B, not an M, a B, and you've got millions and millions of dollars coming in from the Saudi government, blood money, you could almost say. If you know anything about the Saudi government, I know a lot of Saudi individuals, the people of Saudi Arabia. They are great individuals. They are great people. But the government, just like my own government, they're all pieces of trash. So anyway, since Vince McMahon is basically U.S. government, just like Donald Trump and all those other nimwits, they're all just so. Saudi Arabia has given hundreds of millions of dollars to WWE. It doesn't matter if WWE fills out the arena or not. Just come have a pay-per-view here where, since it's a real pay-per-view with real storylines and stuff, like just like any other Royal Rumble or TLC event that would be in Nashville, Tennessee, this one just happens to be in Saudi Arabia because the Saudi government wants people to think like, hey, Saudi Arabia is not too bad. Look at, they got WWE, they got Pitbull doing concerts, and Saudi Arabia ain't bad. And then you overlook that they oppress women and all the royalties rich while the little people are starving literally on the street. So it's just this whole the rich rule the world BS, which again, I hope my channel doesn't get shut down, but with this whole Vince McMahon stuff, like he's part of the rich, he's part of the elite of the world, so he's getting fistfuls of billions of dollars. So the whole question was who done it, who leaked it, and the funny answer is, oh, it's Shane McMahon, because he joked about the lockbox, and I was there in person here in Detroit when Shane McMahon made his return after all those years after the Chinese streaming service and stuff. Here's Shane McMahon back to WWE. I was there in person here in Detroit. I had never heard and never, probably never will hear an ovation like that. That ovation for Shane McMahon's return here in Detroit, which I just happened to be there for, is one of the best things in wrestling I've ever seen live. And within that, Shane McMahon talks about this drop box. And for whatever reason, Vince McMahon, out of character, swears on his own television. He goes, "You motherfucker, I'm going to kill you." He literally says that. You can hear it. And I recorded on DVR so I could watch Raw when I got home. And you can hear it on there too. Vince McMahon goes, "I'm going to kill you, motherfucker," to Shane McMahon. When Shane McMahon makes his return and he talks about this drop box, we never once hear about the drop box ever again. And I'm not out here to spit conspiracy theories, but maybe, just maybe, the reason Vince McMahon went out of character there and said MFer on live TV on his own television network was because the lockbox meant all the dirty secrets. It was just, there is no real lockbox, but it's all the dirty secrets that Vince has accumulated in these 40 years of owning WWF and WWE. I'm sure the laundry list can go on longer than the Jericho list of holds on that he once had. So Um, That's a little bit of a jokey thing to say, but in my mind, it's Nick Khan. Nick Khan, the guy I just explained all the business stuff, he released like close to 200 people just to save money, and he made deals with Fox and Peacock and the Saudi government to bring in billions and billions of dollars. And now we've eliminated Linda was already gone from her Senate race. Now we eliminated Triple H and Stephanie and Shane. Who's left to eliminate by Nick Khan? And the whole, before we even get into further than that, let's go back to the last like 6 months. We've all like seen what's been going on, and the whole rumors were: is Vince McMahon gonna sell WWE? Is Vince McMahon about to sell WWE? And that's what we've all been thinking. But here it is. No, WWE is going to get sold, but it's not going to be sold by Vince McMahon. WWE will be sold, and it will be sold by Nick Khan. We don't know who's going to buy it. It might be NBC Universal, it might be Fox, it might be Disney. Disney's probably the one that people are thinking the most, because Disney just loves their content. They got Star Wars now, they got Pixar, Disney, all the stuff. They own ESPN, and I think they own Hulu as well. So I think Disney's a good front runner. I think Vince McMahon potentially might go to jail. Nick Khan sells WWE to Disney, and we get a whole different. We don't even know where to go, what that means, but that's definitely a possibility. It's not out of the realm of possibility, because for months and over a half a year, people have been thinking, oh, it looks like they're doing clearing all this stuff out and doing the deal with Peacock because Vince wants to sell WWE. Now we've got all the rest of the McMahons out of the picture, and it looks like Vince McMahon might be out of the picture. So going back to the allegations, it looks like of course the biggest thing as far as the shareholders is, it's like proof that Vince McMahon doubled the pay of this woman and then potentially passed her around as a toy. It was quote unquote as a toy. So we don't know what they know, but they know enough to say she was passed around as a toy. So that means a lot of things. And we also know that they know a lot of different things that are in there now investigating. And as we said, Vince McMahon has about 40 different different list of things, including like when he paid off people that were Pat Patterson was molesting a underage boy who was a part of the ring crew. So there's just a laundry list. The whole Jimmy Snuka covering up the Jimmy Snuka murdering his girlfriend in a hotel thing. There's just so many things, and that's why, like, I brought up the lockbox that Shane McMahon talked about that night that never got brought up again, and then had become jokes for like ever since then. The lockbox means all the dirty ass secrets of Vince McMahon who have now been gotten out. Maybe Nick Khan found out about these. It probably doesn't take too much. If I know all about these dirty secrets, Nick Khan could pay somebody to investigate all the history of Vince McMahon and come back with all these different allegations. And then they can set into, with their billions of dollars that Nick Khan has at his disposal, private investigators to then, once all the investigate all these rumors, maybe 70% of the rumors aren't true, but they find the 30%, and the 30% is 10 to 15 different things that they can all indict Vince McMahon on. So I do believe Vince McMahon will be relieved of his duties within the year of before 2022 is over. I don't think Vince McMahon will be running WWE anymore. But like I said, I would not be surprised. Like Robert Kraft to this day runs the New England Patriots as if nothing ever happened. So it's not out of the realm of possibilities. As far as the who done it, Shane McMahon's a possibility. Triple H and Stephanie are a possibility. Linda's a possibility. But my main culprit, as far as the who done it, like who shot Mo, who shot Mr. Burns, is Nick Khan. I think Nick Khan has the most to gain from this. What kind of deal if Nick Khan takes over the entire WWE and then sells it to Disney? Nick Khan makes like $16 billion or something ridiculous like that. So and then like I don't want to get my channel shut down, but like probably Nick Khan is just another pawn of something higher, and now they're got another $16 billion on this new world order higher power that runs the world, that behind the scenes type deal. So that's just another like $20 billion to their cause, and that this is why things like this happen. So all of Vince McMahon's underhanded dealings and mafia and politics and stuff like that finally caught up to him, I believe, which it couldn't happen to a nicer guy. As we said, he's done just on air on the only thing we can go by is what we see with our own eyes. And Vince McMahon for years wrote these women to be perverted and act subordinate to him on air for everybody to see. So not good. So before we could even get out of Wednesday, this all happened. All this news came out Wednesday, sometime during AEW Dynamite, which was an amazing Dynamite. Go check out my review for sure. They're setting up the big New Japan cross promoted show with AEW. Only now I think 9 days away, and it's going to be amazing. But while that show was on, the news released. It's still not confirmed, so don't take my word as gospel, but it's still not confirmed. But it is being reported that Sasha Banks, after, if you remember, her and Naomi walked out about 5-6 weeks ago after being told to do something. They put the two women's tag team titles, which we've never seen on WWE era ever again. The tag team titles were laid on Johnny Laurinaitis's desk of all people, who's now being in this investigated. Sasha Banks and Naomi walked out, and it seems to be that Sasha Banks has been granted her release. I'm sure Sasha Banks was wanting a release, but I was also sure that WWE would have wanted to hold on to her contract as long as they could. This is a company where Sasha Banks is such a big star, where she's like even in the Mandalorian and stuff like that, and other side things and talk shows and whatnot, where the WWE never promotes that stuff. WWE never once promoted that Sasha Banks was on the Mandalorian. Sasha Banks doesn't need WWE. WWE needs Sasha Banks, and Sasha Banks left and took Naomi with her. So Sasha Banks has all my adulation and props in the world for doing that. I like I said, the release is not confirmed, but I hope and pray that it is. I don't know. It's not like I want her to immediately show up on AEW tomorrow or Impact. Like a lot of people have said, well, if Sasha Banks goes to Impact, that's just a waste of Sasha Banks. And I might agree with that, but it also might draw double the viewers that Impact had before. So you never know with these types of things. Ideally, I would like to see Sasha Banks, one of those deals like Cody Rhodes when he left WWE, where we see Sasha Banks in Japan, we see Sasha Banks in NWA, we saw Sasha Banks in AEW, and we also see her in Impact. So I hope it's one of those type of deals where she also like reprises her role in Mandalorian and maybe gets another role in Hollywood, and she's a star. So I hope all the best for Sasha Banks. That definitely isn't going to erase the Vince McMahon news, but that's some encouraging news coming out of all that horrific news, such as passing around like a toy that we got earlier in the day on Wednesday. So the fact that Sasha Banks is potentially released from her WWE contract is tremendous news. That's great news. I couldn't. Sasha Banks, her and Bailey leading the women's revolution. There was other people there with them, like Paige and Emma, and all the other women, like Alundra Blaze and Jackie Moore, who all tried to Gail Kim and people like that, and Trish Stratus and Lita, all tried to do their best to make women's wrestling legit within WWE, where this hornball, delinquent, perverted owner is overseeing your every move. So I'll just there's a lot going on, but I hope Sasha can lead a happy life and continue to be a star in the wrestling world. And if she shows up on AEW, I'm pretty sure that episode of AEW would go up tremendously. Now, there's another person who's also being released in the next week or so, Paige, who Paige is still not cleared by any doctors to ever wrestle again, but Paige is also potentially going to be in the free agent market along with Sasha Banks. So the women's revolution is alive and well. I would love for Bailey to join them and try and get out of her contract. Screw Charlotte at this point, but Becky Lynch would be a nice addition, and I would love to see all of them join, like Stardom, for example, and try and get Stardom to become just as big as New Japan has become in America, and then try and grow from there. So a lot of big things in the horizon with her. I'm glad to see Sasha doing good things. She has my 100% and 10% backing. If you've watched Sasha's career, you've seen that they haven't respected her like they should. Going back to her never having more than a 3-month title reign is it on the main roster is ridiculous. Her losing in Boston in the Hell in the Cell match to Charlotte is also ridiculous. Her and Bailey then formed the tag team titles, and that's what they wanted to get the tag team titles over for the women. That then maybe just maybe WWE would be forced to have some of the women that weren't going for the main title actually have something to do. So that was what then Sasha and Bailey switched their focus over to that. They quickly lost the titles to the Iconics, which isn't too bad. You want to put over other teams like the Iconics, but fast forward like 2 or 3 years, and the Iconics are both released after having broken up before being released. So WWE never cared about women's wrestling. They never will care about women's wrestling as long as Vince McMahon is the owner. And Sasha Banks was wasting her career there. Let's take into account that we've known Sasha Banks now for like 6 or 7 years, ever since she debuted in NXT. Sasha Banks is 30 years old. People, 30. Let that sink in. Sasha Banks potentially hasn't even gotten to her prime as an in-ring competitor and a star, as someone who can cut a good promo and make you believe in whatever storyline she's put in. So I hope she's able to take Bailey with her. I don't want as much as I'm under I'm the kind of guy. I want to watch the things that are most important to me when it comes to wrestling is watching wrestlers' stories progress. So, for instance, like watching Ricky Morton's story from when he first became a wrestler to his whole Rock and Roll Express run as NWA champion and stuff like that, to continue to this day. Ricky Morton is in NWA tag teaming with his son. He was just on the pre-show of the Always Ready pay-per-view over the weekend. So just for an example, that's what's more important to me than following like being a fan or following a certain company. I like to follow the wrestlers. You never know where the wrestlers are going to go. Their whole story from beginning to end is going to be one complete story if you put it all down on paper or make like a YouTube compilation or whatever. So, just I hope for good things out of Sasha. Uh, she's a bona fide superstar, and I definitely want it to be one of those things where she's in 6 different companies. So that's pretty much the news. There's other things that happened, but talk about 3 major things between Jeff Hardy's DUI, Vince McMahon potentially getting in trouble enough to get kicked out of his own company, and Sasha Banks potentially, it's not confirmed, but getting released. So talk about a news heavy week. That doesn't even include the stuff like Jay White defeating Okada for the IWGP World Heavyweight title, or the Young Bucks are the new AEW tag team champions, or all the stuff we saw on AEW, which definitely go check out my review of Dynamite. It's on this channel. So many things happened leading up to the New Japan show. We've got New Japan coming up. Like I said, I'll be here after this podcast. I'll be here to review Impact, the NXT UK, SmackDown, Rampage, NXT Level Up, and the New Japan shows this weekend, as well as Impact and Impact Slammiversary, which is this weekend. So it never ends. We got Raw next week, NXT next week, and we've also got 2 New Japan shows both of those nights as well. I'll be here to review all of those, so we'll still continue to focus on the wrestling, and I do have the ability to just focus on the wrestling as it's presented in front of me and not think about, oh, Vince McMahon this and Sasha that, and oh, this guy was accused of this in the past, or this woman has a different political belief than me. I can all just enjoy the wrestling I'm seeing in front of me for what it is, and judge it if I'd like it or not for what it is. put in front of me now. Pro wrestling, and like I've been trying to explain through this whole podcast now, it's just this beautiful thing of mixture of real life and storylines, and they have to do whatever a certain person tells them to do, but they're also their individual people. And if they get injured, then the whole storylines change, or you never know what could change and all that stuff. But in addition to all of that, you've also got all of the beautiful just storylines in the actual story. So there's things you can get behind here and there. I'm going to talk about some of the companies now. First of all, I want to give it start with NWA. I've been following NWA on Twitter only for about a year or two now. I've been hearing great things. I know that Billy Corgan, after he took over Impact slash TNA Wrestling, then put his money over here into reviving NWA. And I knew they had a weekly show called Powerrr going on. And I also I even followed their YouTube channel without watching the actual anything on the channel. But then I saw they had, I just wanted to see who's wrestling and stuff like that. So they also got a secondary weekly channel show called USA. So Matt Cardona, if you guys don't know, Zack Ryder, once he got released from WWE, has just gone on a tear of Cody Rhodes proportions as far as going to every company in the world. Matt Cardona is his real life name. That's Zack Ryder. Matt Cardona has just embraced this heel character, and also all of the stuff that made him famous with the true Long Long Island Z, or true Long. I forget the story, the title now, but Zack Ryder created his own digital media show on YouTube before we're talking beginnings of YouTube back in the day, and became a huge star. Vince McMahon and the rest of the brass at WWE didn't like that, buried him for having the audacity to become a star on your own. And he's now using all of that social media stuff now that he's released from WWE to show that he is a star. And Matt Cardona was the NWA World Heavyweight Champion, also the GFW Champion, and the Digital Media Champion in Impact. And he might even have had other titles than that. That's just an example of how crazy Matt Cardona has been going around the world. He's got his real life girlfriend, Chelsea Green, with him. You might remember her as Laurel Van Ness from Impact, or Chelsea Green from Tough Enough and NXT. She's with him. Matt Cardona also has Brian Myers. That's, of course, his longtime tag team partner in WWE. I always forget his name. Brian Myers is Zack Ryder, and why is his name so forgettable? But he had like 200 losses in a row on WWE television, and he's with him as well. So that's what got me to thinking maybe I should check. I did check out GFW. GFW is not for me. I'm not the kind of guy that wants to see a man hitting a woman over the head with a light tube and then trying to cut her forehead open with that same light tube. So that's not the wrestling for me. But I was gonna give Matt Cardona another try over here in NWA, which I've kind of been following on the fringe. So I will say definitely go check out NWA, especially if you're a fan of the super heavyweights. NWA has a legitimate heavyweight slash super heavyweight division. Such as the body types you would have seen in the late 80s, early 90s. But these guys can actually move. They're the evolution, the next evolution of the big guys. Like all of these guys are on the level of like a Psycho Sid, for example, and not like your Omos's and your big guys that WWE has. So NWA is a legitimate heavyweight division. They also have a legitimate women's division, which also looks like within their women's division they have a heavyweight women's division. So the match of the night at the Always Ready card pay-per-view was Camille, who's kind of similar to Charlotte in ways, up to the point where she's dating the former Charlotte boyfriend Bram. I think they might even be married, who's also part of NWA as Tom Lattimore. Another person who has a lot of allegations. I don't know if they are proven in court against him, but anyway, that stuff Camille is their champion, the NWA heavyweight champion. She fought Kylan King. If you remember, you might have seen her in AEW, another big heavyweight of the women's division. And they've got some other heavyweights coming in, including Taya Valkyrie, who, in my opinion, I might be just going, it's still real to me, damn it, and being Mark. But to me, it looked like Taya Valkyrie didn't want to lose her match at Always Ready to Natalie Markova, and went in the business for herself and tried to knock Markova out of unconscious. That's how I took it. I could be wrong, and I might just be a mark, but I'm not a big fan of Taya Valkyrie going forward. So, but anyway, the women's division of NWA is legitimate, and so is the heavyweight division. They've also got a nice junior heavyweight division. Um, from LAX fame, Homicide is their um, light heavyweight champion. They've also got women's tag team champions who are really cool. Good tag division and all kinds of stuff. So definitely go check out the NWA. They've got a weekly show called Powerrr and a weekly show called USA. You could watch both on for free on YouTube, and watching both back to back would only take about an hour and a half. So I highly recommend that, especially if you're in the heavyweight / super heavyweight wrestlers. So great. I was glad I did that. The New Japan Wrestling Dominion probably wasn't as good as I thought it might have been, as far as you think of Dominion as being the second biggest card of the year. But my God, the main event between Okada and Switchblade Jay White was out of this world. It's not the type of match for everyone. It's very slow paced, but what you get is a lot of character work out of it. So it's one of those matches where you'll see people rate it anywhere from 1 star to 5 star, depending on how much they care about story in their matches and how much they care about move after move after move and a spot monkey type fest. So anybody that likes a spot monkey type move after move fest would rate that as maybe a 1 star. And the people that really appreciate the story and how this is a pivotal moment in the career of Okada and Jay White both, which it definitely was. It was a turning point in both of their careers, and very pivotal if you were watching their career from beginning to end. And I would rate it close to 5 stars based on that, based on story. But it was definitely slow paced and not quite the match I would want to see, which I would put it then at a 4.5 star range, just because it was a little too slow for me, even with all this great, amazing story. So out of that, Switchblade Jay White is your new New Japan Pro Wrestling champion. And we got teased on AEW, so a lot of people showed up, took the flight over to America. New Japan Dominion was afternoon Japanese time, afternoon of Sunday. For me, it was 1 a.m. Saturday going into Sunday, so Sunday 1 a.m. And all these wrestlers were able to get over here in the time for Dynamite on Wednesday, including Tanahashi, who's going to main event Forbidden Door in 9 days against John Moxley. So it will be John Moxley versus Tanahashi, who Tanahashi beat Hiroki Goto at Forbidden Door pay-per-view just over the weekend to get that shot against John Moxley, who beat Kyle O'Reilly after O'Reilly won the Battle Royal. So, and all of this was just supposed to be Tanahashi versus CM Punk in CM Punk's hometown at Forbidden Door. But of course, CM Punk ended up getting injured. So again, having to rewrite entire stories just based off of real life stuff. So it will be Tanahashi versus John Moxley at the main event of Forbidden Door. I can't wait for that. And I hope that maybe we can even get a Tanahashi match before that on Rampage or Dynamite. We saw Tanahashi on Dynamite. He told Jericho to shut up after Jericho interrupted. We found out not only did Sammy Guevara now join the Jericho Appreciation Society, but Jericho will team up with Sammy Guevara and Minoru Suzuki in a match at Forbidden Door against Shota Umino, of all people. That's Red Shoes, the senior referee of New Japan. Once upon a time, a couple years ago, Chris Jericho beat the crap out of Shota Umino when he was just a young boy and a young lion in New Japan in front of his own father. Chris Jericho beat the crap out of him. So Shota Umino will team with Eddie Kingston, and unfortunately, I can't remember who they're teaming with, but it's Minoru Suzuki, Jericho, which someone, I think it was Wrestle Culture, brought up today. Um, that's a Tony Khan special right there, where um, within Forbidden Door, we're going to get Judas, followed immediately by Kazo Nino Rei, the amazing theme song of Minoru Suzuki. So the theme song of Jericho and Suzuki are going to be played back to back, and that in and of itself is going to maybe potentially be a top 5 moment, depending on how great these matches are. It might only crack the top 10. So a lot looking forward to. We don't know yet what Jay White, the new IWGP Heavyweight Champion, is going to do. Although on Dynamite, Adam Cole did say, now he is a heel, so we don't know if he's telling the truth or not. But Adam Cole did say that Okada will not be at Forbidden Door, and also Jay White said he's not going to defend his newly won IWGP World Heavyweight title against either Adam Cole or Hangman Page, who was out there calling out wanting the title shot. So we'll have to find out this week on AEW, and the pay-per-views coming up. So with not much time left to build up to that. Like I said, I'll be here to review Rampage. I'll also be here to review. There's 3 shows for New Japan on New Japan World. If you want to just go to NJPWworld.com. It's about $9 a month. You can get all the live pay-per-views, and most of them, 90% of them, have English commentary. You can also go back all the way to the 1970s in New Japan and watch everything from then until now. So I highly recommend the $9 a month to get NJPW World, and you can get these 3 shows as well. There is things on these New Japan shows pertaining to Forbidden Door, and that is a little mini 4-man tournament for the right to get to the 4-way match at Forbidden Door for the first ever All Atlantic champion. So Miro and Pac have already qualified for that match, so this is going to be a great match. Basically, it's going to be Tomohiro Ishii, who's basically the Japanese version of Miro. So having Miro and Ishii in the exact same match is also one of those top 10 moments that Tony Khan's looking for. So Ishii is probably going to be the one that out of Hanma, Clark Connors, and Kanemaru are the other 3 that could potentially go to Forbidden Door in the All Atlantic. But it's definitely going to be Ishii because of the fact that we want Ishii and Miro in the ring at the same time. The other match is Malachi Black versus Pentagon. Either one of those is going to be great, but I'd prefer to see Malachi Black. That would give us Pac, which is, if you guys don't know, the former Adrian Neville from WWE and NXT fame. Neville in NXT was amazing, and as cruiserweight champion as well. So Pac in AEW has been amazing ever since becoming here. I think Malachi Black, who is Aleister Black, if you guys don't know, he'd be a great addition. Miro, if you guys don't know, is Rusev, and then Ishii is basically the Japanese Rusev, for lack of better terms. He's just a hard-hitting guy. Ishii is. He exemplifies strong style. You're not going to get flashy stuff out of Ishii. He's called the Stone Pitbull. So you can kind of tell from Stone Pitbull, you might not know exactly what that means, but it just means like he never backs down. He just goes forward. He doesn't look to the side. He doesn't change his strategy whatsoever. He's just going to attack and move forward. So that looks like an amazing match at Forbidden Door. So I will definitely be here for Forbidden Door review as well when that happens. But like I said, I'll follow the New Japan shows. There's 3 of them. The first one is going to have those semifinals, like I said, and also set up to we got 2 big title matches in New Japan. Both are for the 2 junior heavyweight titles, both the junior singles title and the tag titles. Both of these stories coming out of. We just finished the Best of the Super Juniors month-long tournament, basically the junior version of the G1, which is coming up very soon, and If you didn't see my Dominion review, we got the competitors for G1 announced. Unfortunately, nobody from Blackpool Combat Club, so that means no Moxley, no Danielson. Our AEW representative is going to be Lance Archer, which I wasn't that excited about, but the Lance Archer is very well known in New Japan and the New Japan crowd. Out of all the people announced, now, of course, I got to preface this by saying, like Tanahashi and Okada and all those people, Naito, are assumed that they're already going to be in G1. So there's no like big reaction because it's not a surprise. So it was a surprise to the Japanese crowd, and they all cheered when Lance Archer was announced. But there is no other AEW representatives in G1. Anyway, we just finished the Best of the Super Juniors, which was won a third year in a row by Takahashi of LIJ, and that's his third in a row. So, we got someone checking in here. So, SmackDown Women's Division so weak. If Ronda had actual wrestlers around her, then maybe they could have someone to actually have a good match with. And I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. First of all, Ronda isn't doing herself any favors by showing no emotion anytime she has to talk and stuff like that. But yeah, no, we saw on SmackDown. I was well encouraged. I've never said that Ronda can't go in the rings. Like, and we saw with Shotzi, who I wouldn't necessarily say Shotzi is as good as Ronda, but she's close to Ronda as far as experience. And Shotzi and Ronda were able to go in the ring on SmackDown, and they had a great match. That match, Ronda versus Shotzi, was great. I think Ronda's better in a chasing position. So if I was in charge, I would call Mandy Rose and Toxic Attraction up from NXT. I would have Mandy Rose beat Ronda with some cheating, and then have Ronda chase Mandy Rose the entire summer, eventually getting the title back until you can maybe build up some more competitors. So the reason that you say stuff like that is because WWE hasn't built up any of the people that they have left on the SmackDown roster. Let's go back to Xia Li has had 3 matches, I think, on the main roster, and basically has done nothing after her amazing vignettes about her being a comic book style and protecting her family and beating up her landlord and stuff like that. Go back to Shotzi coming up from NXT. She formed a tag team with Tegan Nox, who they released Tegan Nox within a couple months, and Shotzi has 0 singles match wins on the main roster, only ever having won a tag match at the very beginning. And then you've got Aaliyah. She had that whole stuff where she beat Natty, but then they never had Aaliyah do anything ever again. And you've got, of course, Natty and Shayna Baszler. They kind of made them look like a joke, even though like Shayna Baszler is the one person. So you want to go back to if Ronda had actual wrestlers around her. Hello, Shayna Baszler. Shayna Baszler is Ronda Rousey's best friend in real life, or one of her best friends. They both come from UFC. They can wrestle a match. You could have them wrestle every single night, and it would be amazing. So all of this is WWE's fault for not treating their SmackDown roster seriously. So now we got Raquel that they're trying to build up, but still, like, obviously Raquel isn't on Ronda's level. So, but there is other people that they could potentially bring up. I would like to see that Ronda versus Shayna Baszler match. But like I said, I want to see obviously Mandy Rose is not a better wrestler than Ronda, but I think Mandy Rose as a heel with her 2 little lackeys, Gigi Dolan and JC Jane, would be a good foil for Ronda to have to fight with. And eventually I would like to see Ronda join with a tag team with like Shotzi and have Ronda in the tag team division. Since Ronda has this whole legitimate thing, it seems like she could beat everybody. She kind of has that Brock Lesnar vibe where she can beat anybody. And it just seems like that would be better off in the tag. If you want to really get a women's tag team division off the ground, having like a Ronda Rousey tag team, or you could have Ronda team with Shayna. But I think having Ronda team with Shotzi would be a good idea. Then when Ronda does like stop wrestling and leaves WWE, you have Shotzi for like 5 years, where now she has the rub of all the stuff she did with Ronda, and Shotzi can be a star going forward. But there's plenty of women on the NXT roster that they can bring up the SmackDown, even other than Toxic Attraction. I'm not quite sure what Io Shirai's injury is, but Io Shirai is one of the best wrestlers in the world. Put her on the SmackDown roster. She can instantly just as good, if not better than Ronda. And you've got Kaylee Ray, now named the Alba Fire, another wrestler probably better than Ronda Rousey. All these women, they're not as big as stars, obviously, but probably can cut a better promo than Ronda and wrestle better. And speaking of which, I mentioned earlier, Paige is about to be released. Paige asked for her release, and it will be granted, I think, July 7th. And one of the things that came out of that report was that Paige offered to be the mouthpiece or slash the manager, the person that talks for Ronda Rousey when Ronda made her return. And I don't understand why, even if you said no at the beginning and you're so obviously Paige was still getting paid this whole time. That's why she's about to get released, because she was getting paid this whole time. So if you're paying Paige anyway, and she offers to be the mouthpiece for Ronda, and even if you said no at the beginning, once you see a month's worth of these Ronda promos where she has no emotion whatsoever and doesn't seem like she wants to be there, get on that phone and call Paige and say, hey, you know that offer you made about talking for Ronda? How about you come on down and we try it out and we give it a test run? Like, what the heck? So anyway, going back to Ronda also coming back and affecting now people that want to leave WWE. It was said that, and it was even said on air, if you remember, Charlotte said on air eventually at one point, oh, well, I think I should fight Sasha Banks at WrestleMania instead of Ronda Rousey. And of course, it was Ronda Rousey, and that Ronda Rousey versus Charlotte match was terrible. And they fought again at Backlash, and that's where Ronda eventually won the title. So I think, or I know for a fact that that was supposed to be Charlotte versus Sasha, and that's what the rumors are. And all it takes is going back to that promo that Charlotte said on air, where she named, "I think I should fight Sasha Banks at WrestleMania in the main event." And they don't just say something like that. Like WWE wouldn't just want that told. I think that's just Charlotte knowing that Charlotte isn't going to get fired because she means too much to WWE. Charlotte went out on her own and said that because that was what Charlotte was just as mad as Sasha in the fact that the plans were Charlotte versus Sasha Banks at WrestleMania. And I'm assuming probably Sasha Banks was going to beat Charlotte at WrestleMania and win the SmackDown Women's title. Instead, we get out of nowhere about two or 3 weeks before Royal Rumble starts, we get the rumors that Ronda Rousey is going to come back, and everybody is already talking. If Ronda Rousey does come back for the Royal Rumble match, then she's going to win the Royal Rumble match, and she's probably going to win then at WrestleMania. And that's what we thought even before we saw Ronda Rousey on TV. That's what we thought, and that's exactly what happened. But it was way worse than anybody could have ever imagined. As far as Ronda had no emotion behind any of her promos and seemed like she wanted to be anywhere other than a WWE arena. So that's a big reason why Sasha left as well. So once Sasha got that rug taken out from under her and demoted, quote unquote, demoted to only winning the tag team titles, Sasha's like, all right, well, me and Naomi will make these women's tag titles like relevant and one of the biggest titles in the world, and we'll bring some prestige to these. And then the night that they walked out, Sasha and Naomi were told that they were going to be in a match against each other with 4 other women. The winner of that match, which was going to be Naomi, while pinning Sasha, which makes no sense. They just wanted to be a tag team. Now they're pinning each other in a match for a singles title. And they were also going to have Sasha fight Ronda and figure out a way for Ronda to fight. So it was going to be Naomi versus the Raw Women's Champion, Bianca Belair, in a losing effort, and it was going to be Sasha versus Ronda in a losing effort. So you can see why they put the titles on the desk and walked out of WWE, and now Sasha might be released, and probably Naomi close behind her. All of this because just looking at Sasha's point of view, she's been trying to do this women's revolution for so long, all these setbacks, but she still continues to try and try and try. And okay, well, she was going to be in the main event. Sasha was more than happy to put over Bianca Belair in the main event of WrestleMania last year, and she was happy about that, putting another, especially black woman, in the spotlight. And Sasha's all about uplifting other women. But no, here's Sasha. She gets the rug pulled out from under her. Here's Ronda Rousey's going to take your spot instead. And Ronda ends up being a complete dud, like a fart in church. And in the meantime, Sasha's all right. Well, on to the next challenge. I'm going to make these tag titles great. Nope. Here's WWE. They want to, they want Ronda to feel more important, so we're gonna have Sasha fight Ronda and lose for the tag titles, and we're gonna have Naomi lose to Bianca over here for the singles title, and both of you are gonna lose after Naomi pinned you in a multi-man match. Like, none of it makes sense. None of it makes sense, bro. Make it make sense. So, um, just so much news going on. Um, Impact, they're coming up on their 20th year anniversary. I can't believe they're the zombie promotion. Nobody gives Impact any respect. I'm pretty sure they only get about 80 to 60,000 viewers. We're making fun of WWE for only bringing in like 2 million viewers on SmackDown, which if you compare that to the Simpsons, who the Simpsons were old and outdated over a decade ago, the Simpsons bring in 3 million viewers on the same network. So SmackDown brings in 2 million viewers, and it's all downhill from there. That's the most watched television show, which SmackDown has been god awful up until about the last couple weeks. Like, last episode of SmackDown was actually watchable for once, other than the Lacey Evans BS, which don't get me started on that. Just John Cena 2.0, as far as exploit this, exploit that, exploit this, exploit that. I can't believe some of the stuff they were talking about on television without a trigger warning to warn people that might be affected by this stuff that happened to them in the past. I don't even want to talk about it. But yeah, I'll be back here tomorrow. I got a lot of reviews to do. I've got Impact, NXT UK. From today, I'll get up at some point when I watch them. Then tomorrow we've got SmackDown, Rampage, and NXT Level Up. I'll have individual reviews for those. Later on that night, I think, is the first of the three NJPW New Japan shows. I think those are Saturday, Monday, and Tuesday. We've got Slammiversary, I think, is Sunday, and I'll be back for Raw on Monday, NXT Tuesday, AEW Wednesday, and somewhere along uh, a week from now, I'll be back for the flagship, the Wonderful Wrestling Podcast, where we'll take stock of the week in wrestling. Most weeks, I'll be able to talk about the companies and the wrestling more within this flagship show. But man, there was just so much news and stuff to go over about. I could talk about Vince or Sasha or Jeff Hardy for another hour each. But my voice is a little sore. Allergies have just been crazy here in Detroit, and I'm gonna go get something to eat. Maybe I'll be back on in a little bit. Like I said, I just started today. I started year 2 of the most in-depth WWE 2K universe mode you'll find on the internet. It includes all the people from the Performance Center and NXT, including people like Saul Rucka and Hank Walker and Miles Bourne and people like that, where you might be saying, who? Well, don't worry. I've done all the research. I've got them in the game. I've created them. I've got their renders and their pictures, and they've already been added to the universe mode. So I might be on with that a little bit later. I started year 2, like I said earlier today. Last Saturday, I got to WrestleMania 39. Go check out WrestleMania 39 in Hollywood. It was the culmination of all the stories I put together in my fantasy booking. And from now on, now that I built up, I ended the brand split for the universe mode, and I've also brought up a ton of NXT people. So now that I've built up all the stories that you can go back, I've numbered them from episode 1 all the way up to episode 85 now on the universe mode streams, the most in-depth you'll find anywhere. All the Performance Center, all the NXT people. But I built up the stories all the way up to WrestleMania 39, which I just finished Saturday. And today I started year 2, where I'm now going to let the computer do everything by random. I did set the table to have a certain percentage of tag matches or like a 1% chance of a 8-man match where and all that stuff. So, but I've also built up this whole um I've built it up enough so that you can have a pretty good story. So I might be back with that later, but I will be back with plenty of reviews. And thanks for tuning in. We've got a lot to talk about. It'll never end. The news never ends. And just in general, I hope everybody out there is having a good time, is doing all right. And if you need to talk, just hit me up. I'm always here for any of you. So, yeah, hopefully another good week of wrestling. Hopefully nothing too crazy happens. Hopefully everybody's healthy and well. And I'll talk to you very soon. Thanks for tuning in. Bye. Peace.